Hey, 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 I'm Andrea Stevens,
And I'm Jeannette, and we are Web's Women.
where exposure brings strength. All right, we're here. Last week of January, baby.
Yes, we are. I'm super excited to be here with you and excited to have our guest, Ruth.
Yes, Rute Haag is here, 2021. Here we go. Yeah. So we have a guest today. Rute Haag is here from Arizona, my favorite state in the country.
And I
And
love how you're singing it as you are saying it. How awesome.
I wanted everybody to hear my vocals because they're just fabulous.
I love that. The energy is flowing tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's got
Yeah.
every night it
Yeah.
flows,
It's
right?
gotta flow. It's gotta flow at all times. So
Yes.
Arizona.
Yes, yes.
Yep,
So,
Arizona.
yes. So she is a super successful realtor in Arizona. That is where she is at this present time as far as our work world goes. But we are going to get personal and we are going to hear her story, whether it's bits and pieces of different times in her life. But she's gone through a lot of shit and she's come out on top and her story needs to be heard. I think it needs to be heard. She wants to tell it. So we're going to have a little fun. So, Rute, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Of course.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. We're excited to have you.
Well, like I told Andrea, I'm a little nervous to share my story, but I know that it needs to be told. Hopefully it will, empower somebody out there to share their story as well and maybe get through something that they've never or their experience and give them a little bit of encouragement that there's hope out there for them. So
I
that's what I need.
love that, Rue. And you're so right. There's so much power in our stories, and we don't realize um, how much power there is when someone is on the other end listening. And you may very well be, the reason that that person kind of does, a big change. So I totally agree with you on that. So yeah, so
Yeah.
let's get started. Let's hear about you and talk to us.
So,
Oh, where do
so
I
wait,
start?
after 15 years of knowing you, okay, it's been
15
over,
years.
it's been over 15 years,
That's a
but
long
I don't want you to be
time.
nervous because you've known me for that long. So there is no reason to be nervous sharing it with me and my partner in crime here. Um, I think that don't be nervous because it doesn't matter, anything that goes on here, real, raw, to the point, and we got your back 110%. So why don't we start with like when you were younger? Because I know that you had some things go on when you were younger, and those are stories you really don't talk about. And I don't even know if I know most of what went on with you when you were younger. So why don't we like start there?
Ugh, you're getting to the raw stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so you know, it is pretty. Gosh, where do I start with my story when I was young? So I guess I'll start with just this. I was 13. It was a month probably before I turned 14. I was a freshman in high school, and um, I thought I lived a great life. I had my parents. I had a sibling, two siblings, a brother and a sister. And I was going to school. I was in, I had straight A's. I was, you know, above where I should have been in grade level. And so I thought I was doing great, mentally and physically and the whole 9 yards. And I was in band. So I had to get up early in the morning. And every morning, my mom would give us a kiss and, send me off to school. And I was in walking distance from the school. And so I left at like 6 o'clock that morning, normal morning, but it was during the times where you had to test take. So it was my, final semester. And, but I had band before, and it was an hour and a half of practice before school actually started. And I, I went to school just like normal. And about halfway through school, 2 police officers came in to my classroom, and they were like, we need to speak to Mrs. Estrella or Ms. Estrella. And I'm like, well, that's me, and I'm like, oh boy. So I'm thinking, because my dad traveled a lot at that time. And so I thought maybe something happened to my dad and they needed me to talk to somebody. So because my parents weren't that great at speaking English at the time. We had only been here a few years, and it was back and forth back to Brazil. And so, so that's, I was always the interpreter for everybody. So I went outside with police officers, and they began to tell me that we need you to come home because it appears that your house has been robbed. And, I'm, a little bit panicked, freaked out. And so I got into the back of the police car, and they drove me to my house. And sure enough, they let me go in, and I opened up the door, and there was nothing but newspaper in a 3,000 square foot house.
What?
So,
oh my God.
So I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I walked in, and, I'm flushed, and I can almost see it. And if I think long and hard about it, and I walked in and nearly fainted. And the police officer kind of caught me, like, are you all right? I'm like, I think so, and they're like, well, the neighbors were all calling us and telling us that there was like 2 moving trucks here. And, we kept saying, we went to them, and they kept saying that, that shouldn't be happening. And so when they came over and actually looked at the house, my real mother was there. And she was telling him, no, we're moving. So they left. And this happened a couple times. Another set of neighbors would call and say, no, there's different people there. She's not there. So you need to go check it out. So another set of cops came. And then finally on the 3rd time, now this was halfway through the day, that's when they came and got me at school. So I was baffled by this because, I didn't know anything was going on. And that afternoon, my dad was actually flying home, and he literally had just stepped into the gates at that time. We had like these little picket fence gate, and within 20 minutes of him being home, and now the cops are there, I'm crying, the house is empty. My mother only left 1 twin bed. I'll never forget it. One of those card table boxes or card tables with 1 chair and
yes.
TVs that had the old VCRs in them.
Yes. Oh my God.
Out of all of this furniture, that's all she had left. And my dad, when he came through the gates, there was a man there, and he served him with divorce papers. My parents, I had never heard them fight once. I had never heard them argue. I had never had, nothing. There was nothing. And I was the oldest. And so my dad was devastated. He did not see this coming at all. None of us did. Well, once that happened, it was just like a multiplier of things. We found out that then my mother had taken my little brother, and like took him to this place, a friend's house, and actually locked him in a closet. And my sister and I, we were not going to go with her. We knew that, she wanted, but she knew that we would never go. So I ended up having to be emancipated when I was 13 going on 14, because I had to take care of my brother and sister.
Wow.
So that's how my childhood
heavy.
started.
That is so heavy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So that's where it all started. So I really grew up really, really fast.
Yeah, you had no choice.
Yeah.
I didn't have much of a childhood. I started paying my dad's bills because my mother really did everything. And not only did that happen, but I had saved all the money that I had made in a career, a modeling career that I had as a young child. And she had taken all that money. She took all my dad's money. I mean, she literally wiped and cleaned. And
Oh my
I
God.
think she only left him like $1 in the checking account. That was it.
Oh my gosh.
And left $10 in the checking account that she had her name with mine. That was it.
Oh
So
my
with
God.
$11, that's all we had.
I mean,
Oh
how could
my-
you do that to your kids? I mean, that's what I don't
Right.
get. How could you do that to your kids?
So I
mean-
hear, so that's how it all like just
Mm.
started, and
Oh.
really
Mhm.
where I just became a woman at that age. And so right after that, I had met, the kids is, I have two beautiful children that are physically mine. I'd met their father, and we, at the age of 13, and we just kind of started to become even more, involved, even though my dad was very, very strict. But once that dynamic happened, my dad became very, just not lazy, but just couldn't deal with life. There was even a time where my dad really wanted to just take his own life.
Oh.
That's not something that we
Mm.
share very often, but it was a hard time for like
Yeah.
2.5, 3 years
Sure.
for our family.
Yeah.
And so I became very close to this, my boyfriend, who eventually ended up being my first marriage. Because at the age of 17, the first time I ever had sex, I became pregnant. I didn't have a mom to tell me, you need to get birth control, you need to do this, I didn't have any of that. So even though I waited, I thought I was doing the right thing, it still happened.
Right. Of course.
So at the ripe old age of 17, I was pregnant, faced with, going to high school and my junior year. And they weren't going to let me because I was a pregnant teenager. And at that time, it was a taboo, you just don't see it like you do nowadays, that everybody's pregnant. And, it's just sad to see, in this day and age in high schools. But back then it was total taboo. So I ended up just trying as hard as I could to stay in school as long as I could, but I graduated early. So they did let me walk the line, but they did end up giving me a diploma after much fight. So graduated early, went on to college, and thank goodness, all things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer in God, and have a huge faith. And so I got pregnant with her. We got married. It didn't last very long. I ended up wanting to have my kids close because I really, for a long time, I didn't even want to have kids because I had raised my brother and sister for those years, so I wanted to just be
Get a break, right?
an adult,
And be
and
free.
live a little.
Yes.
So once I got pregnant, I actually had to, and then I went through college, got my college degree when I was pregnant with Derek. And in the midst of that, found out that I was 6 months pregnant, and my ex had cheated on me with who I thought was a very close friend of mine at the time. So that's a quite funny story. So when he cheated on me, I found out through our family doctor. He probably could have been fired.
What?
Because, I was
Wait a minute. Back up. Wait. How? Wait a minute. You're gonna share, right? Like how?
I'm gonna share.
Okay.
So
All
he
right.
was a family friend, and he knew that I was that I was pregnant and that he was married. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, I know I could lose my license over this, but I know that you're going to have this baby vaginally. But I got to tell you, your husband has genital herpes."
Oh gosh.
And since this woman was very close to me, she had told me weeks before this actually happened that she had contracted genital herpes. So me being this smart little cookie that I am, I kind of put the two stories together. I'm like, So they cheated on each other, or
Oh, yeah, yeah,
cheated on
yeah.
me with each other. So I went to his work, got on the PA system. This is where it gets real juicy, Andrea, just for you.
Oh my God, I can't. Go ahead. Go
Went
ahead,
on the PA
girl.
system and announced it, and he had like 300 people working at the plant. Mhm.
Oh my God. Good for you.
Yeah,
What a
yeah.
jerk. Oh my God.
Well, you get what you get.
That's right.
My dad used to say, when you do what you did, you get what you got. That's what he's saying. I had to think for a minute.
That's
But
a tongue twister.
yeah,
It's a little bit of a tongue twister.
he used to say, when you do what you did, you get what you got.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
at that time, I had no communication with my real mother at the time. So I, didn't, had nothing. I mean, it was just me, really, and my dad. And so I, left him with everything I could pack in for the kids, for the babies. And I was 6 months pregnant. And
Oh
I
my
went
God.
to this girl's house, and her mom was, answered the door, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to come in?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I have Jocelyn in the car, and I'm pregnant." And she's okay. Well, I'll go get the person. I'm not going to name any names, but the
Mhm,
person.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
she went and got her daughter, and she came out, and she stood in front of me, and I busted her 4 front teeth and broke her leg.
Ooh. Oh my God. While you were very pregnant.
That was not my best moment. I was pregnant.
Blame it on the hormones, baby.
Right?
It was all the hormones.
Sorry.
That's what I'm blaming on.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
Yeah.
when you do what you did, you get what you got.
Those are the consequences.
Hey,
Yeah.
especially when
So-
you're dealing with like younger people, like you should just know. Like when
You
you're
know,
young,
not for nothing, but who does that to a friend? You're disgusting.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like gross.
So,
Well, now she had no teeth.
I could have gone to jail,
Oh my God. I
really.
was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Well,
did they-
yeah.
Did they call the
But
cops on you or no?
oh no, she knew better.
Okay.
Mm. Oof.
She
Mm.
knew I have a Portuguese daddy.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
had to
just
take
like
it.
the Italians,
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, I had Derek, and it was about a year and a half later, I was got a phone call from my sister, and she was like, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know, I have precancerous cells in my uterus, but it's no big deal. You don't have to worry about it. But I just needed to tell you." I'm like, okay, well, back 22 years ago, 23 years ago, it was no big deal. They didn't think that cancer in the uterus can be, hereditary. Now it's actually is. And so I went in, and literally within an hour, I received a phone call back from my gynecologist telling me that you need to hightail it back. You have polyps in your uterus that could be cancerous. So I went back, and they, took the sample, and sure enough, it was within a 24-hour period. The doctor came back and said, absolutely, the 7 are cancerous, and not just
Oh my
precancerous, but cancerous.
God.
Mm. How old were the
So,
kids?
Jocelyn was 2, and Derek was
Mm.
8 months,
Mm.
Oh my
somewhere
Oh
around
my
Lord.
there.
gosh.
So this was now to give you a time period. So when I went for my first appointment, when I thought everything was fine and everything was fine, it was in August. My sister's phone call was in December, the end of December. This doctor taking this stuff out literally was the first week of January. By the end of January that same year, I went from 7 polyps the size of dimes to 27 polyps in my uterus.
Oh my
And they were like,
God.
we're gonna start with radiation. And I was all of maybe 110 pounds at the time, maybe soaking wet. And mind you, I already had 2 kids. And so I thought, okay, no problem. So I started the treatment right away. It was very aggressive. By the end of March, I was 180 pounds. And my radiation treatments were pretty much coming to an end. And I literally was like I had no chin. My arms were just, it was like a walking, those big balloons that you see blown up, the Marshmallow Man. I looked like that.
Oh my God. Well, sure. I
So
mean,
then I started with chemotherapy.
And they didn't do surgery?
Well, so chemotherapy was next. I went through chemo, and so that ended the beginning of May. And now at this time I'm bedridden. I can't walk. They had told me that I have literally probably a month and a half to 2 months to live. Writing a book. I found my books when I was moving that I wrote to the kids, just telling them what I expect from them, later on in life. Because I didn't know, it was hard. But I found this recently. So I couldn't even open them up to read them because,
oh yeah, forget about it.
I don't remember exactly what I wrote.
Yeah.
And to fast forward to today, I'm literally 4 months away from my daughter getting married. And I told her, I hope you have a beautiful wedding. And it was yeah, so it was.
Well, you'll be rejoicing at that wedding, that's for sure.
Yeah, right? You didn't tell me to bring Kleenex.
I know.
So yeah, so I wrote these, journals to both of the kids, not knowing what was going to happen, but they had told me that it was not looking good at all because it was just metastasizing. So by the time I had my chemo and my radiation, my polyps now were 27 of them, and they were the size of grapefruits in my uterus.
Oh my God.
And so they thought that they can take them vaginally. I was the first one at Kaiser Permanente, I'm actually in their books, to have the procedure done that they can try to do it vaginally. And they were unsuccessful. So, obviously they have to make a decision. And on the table, they literally opened me up from one end to the next. And I had to have, emergency surgery right then and there where, I had to have staples. I had 147 staples by the time it was all said and done. But it was actually a blessing in disguise because they found one of the polyps actually on my ovary. So if they wouldn't have opened me up, they would have just taken, my uterus and not looked at my ovary at all. Because they couldn't see because there was just so much mass, and literally when they took everything out, the 27 polyps, I had lost 80 pounds. That's how much weight each one of them were.
Gosh.
Oh my God.
Holy hell.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, the kicker to that is I was engaged at the time because I had already had, the relationship was over with the kids' dad. I had moved on. And this person that I was with, he ended up telling me that, he couldn't go with me to the hospital because our boss, because we worked at the same company at the time, our boss had sent him off to Oregon. Well, when I woke up from this craziness that had just happened to me of the surgery, I had at my footbed, I had my dad and my stepmom. I had his mom and his sister and my boss over here. And I'm like,
Your
what are you doing
boss.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, my boss. And he's like, well, I come to, make sure that my best trainer is well taken care of and is going to be okay. And I'm like, well, why would you send this other person to Oregon? He's like, well, I'm here to ask you the same question because he told me he was taking a 2-week sabbatical to take care of you.
My God.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, so I'm there in bed and he's like, well, why don't you call him? I want to see what he's doing. So I call. I'm like, hey, just got out of surgery, woke up. I'm doing okay. Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad to hear. I've been so worried. I'm like, oh, I have somebody here that wants to talk to you. He's like, who? Who wants to talk? So I'm like, your mom's here, your sister's here, my parents are here.
His family was there too.
And our boss is here. And the phone was silent. I could hear the pin drop in the background.
Oh my God.
I mean, these guys bury themselves. I mean, come on.
So did
They
he get
do.
on the phone with him?
Or did he
Did
hang
So
up?
he does. He picks up the
Yeah.
phone. He takes the cell phone from me and gets on the phone. Hey, so I thought you needed a 2-week sabbatical to take care of Rute.
Oh gosh.
What I thought. He's like, oh, but. And he's like, you're fired. Right there.
Oh, that is
Now,
awesome.
We're talking about we were
Mm.
6-figure income people, and he fired him right there on the spot. He did not even question it one iota.
Well,
He lied to him.
well, when you're
Right.
you're a liar, you're a liar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
that led on to me then really just reevaluating what I wanted out of life. And California at the time, I had just bought a house and it was really turning upside down, and just it was time for me to look at a different avenue. So my dad had already moved from California into Arizona, and I decided to come follow my dad. And my siblings were all here. My dad had remarried a who I now call mom, a wonderful lady. And they actually are celebrating their 26th wedding anniversary at the end of this month. But they got married, and they've been together. They had moved here, and I was like, I'm just gonna move to Arizona, start something new. The company that I was with had given me an amazing package to leave, because of what had happened to me. They gave me a severance package, and they said, we want you to be well. If you need any help in Arizona, we're happy to find you an opportunity there, but here is something that you can go with. And they gave me it was like a year of health insurance
Wow.
to
That's
bring over.
Jeez.
Yeah.
what a
And
blessing.
Mhm.
enough, not my full salary, but enough to get me at least 6 months, through 6 months of
Fantastic.
making that move. And so
Mm.
I made the move, and I have not looked back since. And it was a hard move because when that happened, I have 2 beautiful children, and Jocelyn and Derek, they were my world, really, because that's all I had. And when I moved here, they came with me. Unfortunately, again, the trauma doesn't stop. I had allowed my real mother to come back into my life for a brief moment, which was probably a wrong decision, but I wanted to make sure that I have given every opportunity to her.
Mhm.
And not that I hold any grudges. I've forgiven her, but I just don't need her in my life.
Mhm.
Just putting that out there. And when I moved to Arizona, she is still very angry over what happened way back years ago when she got a divorce from my dad, even though she's the one that took everything. But she ended up going to the children's dad and telling him that you should fight for custody and get the kids back. And what I didn't know is that he too was going through his own demons in life and was battling alcoholism. And and so he went with it. And so she went to the judge and told the judge that I was a cocaine and meth addict, and that I needed to have my kids stripped from me, and wrote a beautiful letter to the judge about how bad of a mother I was. And I couldn't respond because unfortunately I had done something that I'm not very proud of. And I had gotten a DUI and spent 30 days in Tent City. And if Andrea knows anything about Tent City, it
Good
is
old Tent City.
Oh my
it is the
God.
worst place you could possibly go.
Yeah.
So I had gotten a DUI. Again, I'm not proud of that, but I had gotten one. And this was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I had to spend 30 days there. And while that was happening, letters and certified mail was coming to my house, and I couldn't respond or because I didn't even know it was happening. So meanwhile, in California, all this was transpiring. And so the judge granted him full custody of the children.
Oh my God.
So at the time, I was a general manager, as Andrea knows, for a company. And I kept it from the company, the president, the vice president, because I didn't want to lose my job either. And I think Andrea was just starting at that time too, right? It was about that time that you were just starting.
I think that happened before.
It could be.
I think it was before because I don't remember me coming in and you being open about it.
Oh no, I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody. So meanwhile, I'm having to, cover this up and do this and spend close to $50,000 to try to get the kids back. And I just kind of just called it quits and said, I'm going to go talk to them and see where they want to be. Do they want to live with me or do they want to live with their dad? So I went to California, drove out there to California and had a sit down with them and just said, hey kids, what do you guys want? Do you want to stay here with dad or do you want to come back to Arizona?
Now, how old
Mom
were
has
your
spent
kids at that time, Rute? How old were they?
my gosh. I think they were 9 and
Mhm.
7.
They were little.
They were little. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
They were little. Yeah, they were
Oh, goodness.
little. So I said, whatever you guys want, whatever it is, I will do whatever you guys want, and your dad and I will make it work. No problem. So I did, and they chose to be with their dad. Talk about heartache.
Yeah.
Where
Wow.
your kid, choose to be with the other parent. So I was there just not even knowing what to do, really at that point, and just cried and just said, you know what, if this is the best thing for them, that's all that matters. So we made an agreement. They were in year-round school at the time, so they got to stay there a month while they were going to school, and then they would come a month and a half and stay with me, and then it was flip-flop where they were in school for a month and a half and then a month with me, and that's how it worked up until they got into high school. And it actually worked out great, other than the fact that I paid them quite a bit in child support. That hurt a little bit, but it was whatever needed to be done at the time. So meanwhile, I had actually met a gentleman who I thought was my everything. I think this is about the time that Andrea comes into the picture now.
You were married already.
Yeah. So I had gotten married very fast. It was a very fast courtship, not knowing all the stuff that was happening in my brain. But I thought I had met the man of my dreams. And, you know, the next time I got married, it was going to be forever, because I didn't want to be that person that, you know, got married and got a divorce and, didn't make it work because of just something little, or, I think that the society this day and age just gives up too soon, too easy. So we got married. We got married in Hawaii. It was a beautiful wedding. It was just him and I, his folks, which probably should have given me like a little bit of a red flag, because they wouldn't allow to change the date by 1 week so that my parents could come. But
that I didn't know. See, this is new. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the reason behind that?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. Oh God. Oh Lord, help us. Okay, go ahead, girl.
How do we have? So yeah, so it was just us, and we got married, and he was who I thought, this guy who, would only drink when we were together, at other functions, but never with his parents, because he had said that his parents were alcoholics and that we wouldn't drink in front of them to, be, I don't know, not in their favor or whatever. I'm like, okay, I understand, no problem. I don't want to, step on any boundaries or anything like that. So we'll follow that. And sure enough, I found out very quickly that that was not the reason why. He actually had been several times before even meeting me, had been into a couple rehabs. And I had no idea. He was a full-fledged alcoholic, and I had no idea whatsoever. None. So literally we got married, and it was probably 2 months after our marriage where the first big binge went and happened. And it was ugly. If you've never been in an alcoholic marriage or relationship, that is something I don't wish on my worst enemy, really. And so he went through a 4-day binge, and it was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And the stories I could tell about that is just incredible. Some of the things that happened. And so he went to treatment. I put him in and went to a 30-day treatment, Valley Hope. It's a treatment facility in Chandler. And I thought, this is the best thing that could ever happen, because he came out, and for 2 years, it was awesome. Out of 14 years.
Oh, wow.
So he was sober for 2 years. We ended up building a ginormous business together. Andrea knows all about it. In that 2 years. And after that, he started drinking again. And it was a roller coaster ride from hell.
That's such an awful disease.
Such an awful disease.
It really is.
So to make a very long story short, in these years of marriage to him, we went through 13 rehabs.
Wow.
And it was late nights, early mornings of, at times, calling Andrea, telling her to change the entire schedule. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he had gone out on another binge. um, having to have another inspector take on additional work that he really couldn't at the time, because it was a lot of work just doing what he needed to do. And we were extremely busy. I mean, so busy. And then it just progressively got worse. And then we added on another inspector who then became a partner. And I had to hide from this partner, now a partner, not just, another inspector, a partner, that I had this man who couldn't keep it together. So, a few years into it, it just started with the drinking. And then I started to get phone calls from agents telling me that, oh, well, I don't think it was you guys, but, my client's telling me that, pills are missing from their medicine cabinet.
Oh,
And yeah. And so then it became a drug addiction where he was mixing the alcohol with, whatever kind of drug he could find in the house. And he wouldn't,
that's
yeah.
so
And
sad.
it was really sad.
Oh.
And this went on and on and on. And I just, kept trying to put the pieces together, because, here I am, we have an amazing, amazing business that we built from the ground up. And I didn't want to lose that. And I thought, oh my God, yeah, I'm a real estate agent, but, I quit all these big careers that I had to focus on this business. And how am I going to do this by myself? And because, at that time, it wasn't just the alcoholism. It was, he would put me down and he would tell me that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not nothing to the business. And without him, the business would mean nothing. And you didn't do anything to get here and to get us here. And so, so much of this just kept piling on and piling on. And, not that I would eat myself to death, but I wouldn't care about what I look like. I started to gain weight and just buy bigger clothes, and I still looked cute, but, I gained a lot of weight. And so in gaining this weight and going through this emotional high and emotional low, and there was great times and then there was really bad times, I held on to the really good times thinking that it was always going to come back to that. And it never did. It never went back to that. And I tried, because I wanted to be that good wife, and, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. Well, the richer, I should say, the richer just kept getting richer. And yeah, we were very, very well off. But then it became a beating session where it was a mental beating of, who I was, and just, the name calling, and coming home after being in a strip joint. And I mean, I could go on and on and on with stories about what, and, if you've ever been to an Al-Anon meeting, you hear your story, in the rooms of Al-Anon, it's just somebody else, that went through the same thing. Well, so I started to go because I needed to have some kind of escape, because it was just coming at me. And I didn't tell my folks. I didn't tell anybody. I was embarrassed because, I was this figure, this woman that, did well for herself. And I was so ashamed of what was going on back here. And it was scary. I didn't know what avenue to turn to. So that's what I turned to. And little by little, they kept giving me encouragement, to just love on this person. But, there came a time where you have to kill them with love, and it could be exiting that relationship. And I came to that head pretty fast. It happened about 6 years ago now, and I had just had surgery. I had plantar fasciitis, and I had gone through a major surgery with him where he was electrocuted from an inspection off of a building, a 3-story building,
God.
and nearly died. And it was 9 months, or was it 10 months, Andrea? I can't remember, of him not working at all. And, you know, it was, he had multiple surgeries, and just, he had to have bones replaced and joints redone and fused, and it was crazy. So I had put my health again to the side, made sure he was better. And in between that, he just kept drinking and kept drinking. And then it was pill popping. And then it was a huge snowball effect. Well, I finally had enough, and I needed to have my surgery because now my plantar fasciitis had actually torn. And so it was time for me to go have surgery. So I went and had surgery, and we had already had a disagreement, and he was not in the home at the time. But I said, you know, because he had gone on a binge, I said, I need you to be here. I just need you to be here for one day, just one day out of all these years of our marriage. I just need you to be here one day so that I can have this surgery and get back to doing what I do. Oh yeah, I'll be there. You know, yeah, okay. So he took me, and that was the end of the end, pretty much. He took me to surgery. I went in, I had my surgery. And when I came out and came to, the doctor came into the room, and they're like, we can't find your husband anywhere. We've called your cell phone. We've called his cell phone. We cannot get in touch with him. So what does this doctor and his wife do? They shut down their practice. And this is in Mesa, Arizona. I lived in a small town outside of it called Maricopa, Arizona. They drove me from Mesa to Maricopa, put me in my home, made a bed in the downstairs, because I lived in a 2-story at the time, made a bed for me on the downstairs couch, got me all together, put all my prescriptions on the coffee table in front of me. And they said, you know, here, we shot you up with morphine, so you're not going to need to have anything for a few hours, and you should be fine. Here's your first dose of your morphine, but in a pill form, because it's not obviously as crazy as the shot, but here it is here. And then you've got to take these every couple of hours just to maintain, because the pain's going to be a lot. I did a lot of work on your foot. Okay.
Wow.
So now I have a half a cast at the time, not a hardcover, but a soft one. The day that I come home, and my best friend was coming to bring me dinner, because now I'm at home. So I called her and told her half of the story. So she was bringing me dinner. And so she's a nurse. And so she brought me dinner. And as she's bringing me dinner, she's looking at, and I'm in excruciating pain. And this has only been like 3 hours. I'm in excruciating pain. And she's like, what's your medicine? What are you taking? And so she looks, and in the process of me sleeping for a few hours, the ex had come home, had depleted me of all my medication, and filled it with vitamins.
You need to stop. What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
So I had been taking vitamin C, not knowing that he had taken all my prescription pills. Mm-hmm. And the car, he had switched cars now, because now the old car, the white car was there, and he had taken my Camaro with him. And so he was gone. And sure enough, it was, you know, my best friend had stayed with me that night, and she was like, I'm going to stay here, because she had called her husband, said, I'm going to stay here because I, need to be with you. And so she did. Well, that night, it was probably 11 midnight, somewhere around there. He came home drunk and high as a mother, and had pinned me against the wall and was choking me to death,
Oh my God.
calling me every name in the book. And she had gotten a skillet and had to beat him with it
Wow.
until he dropped me. And it was a heavy,
Oh.
like a cast iron skillet. And he finally let me go. And by the time that happened, the cops were at the door, and he had jumped the fence, and they were looking for him. And so they finally found him, and he had gone to jail. And I'll never forget it, because it was October 1st, and our anniversary was going to be a few days later. We had gotten married on October 11th. And so he called me every day to try to bail him out. And I absolutely wouldn't. I was done at that point. So he spent 30 days in jail that time. And by the time he got out, he was, needed to go to court. And now, there had been a couple of other times, and he ended up, the state of Arizona actually ended up taking over, because I kept saying, no, I don't want to press charges. Well, on your third attempt here in Arizona, the state now takes over. So the state took over and actually pressed the charges against him. So they made him go through some programs, and that he needed to go to counseling and whatnot. And so I said, okay, well, I'm getting a legal separation. And so I did. I got a legal separation at that time. And I was scared, because, we had this business.
Right.
I didn't
Right.
know what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
My real estate career was great, or was good, but it wasn't great, not by any means. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. So next thing you know, I filed for it, got everything done. And, the pity party came, and he was like, I promise I'll never do it again. And,
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'll go through all this counseling. I'll do whatever you want, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And so I said, okay, well, if you can stay sober 1 whole year and in a sobriety house for 1 whole year, maybe there's a chance. But there's all these things that we need to do. We need to sell this house, because I'm done being here. There's been too much in this house. I need to start all over by myself, whether you're going to be there or not. I just need closure from this one. So we did. We turned around and sold that house. We had made quite a bit of money, and we bought into a retirement community, because I had my life planned out. I was going to retire by the time I was 55. And that was what we were going to do. And so I did. I sold that house, bought a new house, lived with a very, very good friend of mine while our house was being built. And in that time, he was still in a sober living home. Unbeknownst to me, he was with another woman.
You need to stop. I cannot. It's like, oh my God. What a jerk.
Mm.
And all
Yeah,
the while he wants to get back with you? Wow.
the whole time. Yeah. So we sell this house. The new house is now being built. It closes in the beginning of March of the following year. And I had moved everything in. And if you know anything about me, I know Andrea does, but Jeannette, when I do something, I go balls to the walls. If you've not seen, I am very crafty.
Yeah, girl.
That's just the craft area.
I'm just saying, I am loving that Ray Dunn mugs. I'm a Ray Dunn girl, so.
Oh, you have no idea.
My girlfriend, it's a hey girl.
I love it.
Wait till you see the coffee bar.
Yes, I have a full-on coffee bar. Yes.
Oh my God, I love it.
Needless to say, I move in, and literally within 48 hours, I have emptied out all the boxes, everything's put away, and I have this house. And I decide, okay, we're going to go up north, because we had some cabin, and we were going to go up north and just get away. Okay. Well, we go, and it's about a few hours into us being in our spot, and he looks at me, and his now parents are there, because his parents did everything with us. Again, another red flag. What the point to that is, the mom was a very controlling person and just kind of masked everything.
Mhm.
And that really plays out after the divorce. And so we ended up being at this spot, and he looks at me and he says, this third grade friend of mine is coming. We met on we reconnected on Facebook, and we're gonna she's gonna come up here. She wants to see my folks. She hasn't seen them since the third grade or fourth grade or whatever it was. And I'm like, okay.
Let me tell you, he got some balls. He's bringing the chick that he's with. Oh my God, I can't. This is too much. Lord, go ahead, girl. I don't know. I don't know. I think I need my medicine.
Go get that CBD.
Yeah. So,
oh my God.
We are in now a horseshoe type of, playing cornhole. And I see this car pull up. It's I think an Infinity or whatever. And he says that it's her and the family. So I'm thinking her husband's with her or whatever, and kids or whatever. And so I see this white car coming into where we were at. And I look up, and it's this blonde girl, just her, that's in the car with 2 dogs in the back. And I'm like, son of a bitch. And everything in me, I knew what was happening at that point. I knew that this was the person with, yeah. And so I look at him, and she steps out of the car, and she comes beelining, not to me, not to his parents, straight to him, and gives him like one of those bear hugs that you give your intimate significant other. And at that point is when I knew. And I looked at his mom, and I looked at his dad, and I'm like, oh, this is not happening right now.
Wow.
And it gets better. It gets better.
She still has her teeth. I was just wondering.
Unfortunately, I learned my lesson.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh God.
So so fast forward, she ends up wanting to stay the night because her cabin finished yet, or the people that were staying in her cabin weren't quite ready to leave. So she does. And in the morning, when I hear scruffling outside, I get up, and he's gone already. And so I step out, and in the front, they're both having coffee together. And I looked at her, and I said, if you don't get out in 5 minutes, I'm going to go inside, and I'm going to grab the shotgun.
That's when you know a wife has had enough.
Yes. Whoa. God.
I sailed it out of there, and we ended up packing up that night, and we had only been there 2 days, and we ended up packing up that night and leaving. And on the way back, I said, this is our last camping trip together. We're never going to do this again. And he looked at me, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're just not. I'm done. I'm officially done with this marriage. And I cried the whole way back. I really didn't know truly what that meant at that moment, but was very sad. And obviously I had just found out that yet again I'd had somebody that meant everything to me cheat on me once again. And I said, no, I'm not going to let this happen. And so we did. And we came down and packed everything up. And remember, I had this brand spanking new house. He didn't live with me. He was in a sober living house, but he would come on the weekend and stay and whatever. And so he got there and he's like, can I stay? I'm like, no, you can go to your house. And he refused to leave. And I just continued on with my night and went to bed and got up the next morning, and it was 5:30 in the morning, and he was hammered in the garage. And what I mean by hammered, he had had 7 bottles of vodka.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Oh God.
And something inside of me that day, I had never been the one to leave. I'd always told him to leave, whatever the case may be. But something that day told me, get out. Like,
Mm.
get out. Something's going to happen. And divine intervention, God, whatever it is, literally like pushed my back and said, get out,
Mm.
get out.
Mm.
And I did. I got into my truck. I had a truck at the time, and got into my truck and was crying, and called my dad and had to tell my dad, say, Dad. And I call my dad still Daddy. I'm a daddy's girl.
Mhm.
And I said, Daddy, I need help. John's drinking again, and I just asked him for a divorce, and I need a place to stay for a day or two. And I never wanted to go back home, but I needed something. And whatever you need, and Andrea knows my dad. And
Mm.
my dad has
In that broken English.
in that broken English
Aw.
of it, whatever you need. And so he's like, are you safe? Are you okay? Yes, Daddy, I'm fine. Okay, just get whatever you need and you just come to the house. Here's the code.
Aw.
And so I start my journey to go to my dad's house. Again, I live in Maricopa. They live in Mesa, which is about a 45-minute drive. And my phone is being blown up by him. And he's, leaving me these very nasty text messages and voice messages. And I'm like, I just can't, I can't deal with it. So I get to my dad's house, and actually I hadn't even quite got to my dad's house. And he calls me again and says, um, Rocky's dying, or Rocky's dead, which is our dog. And that's how he gets me to come back. So I come back. I was almost to my dad's house. So I came back, and I had walked in to my house, and I could not find the dogs, neither dog. My craft room, that was much bigger than this, had ended up being destroyed by this man. And when I mean destroyed, I had cabinets like this, and he had ripped them off of the wall. There was stuff everywhere. My computers were broken, all my machines. I had Cricut machines and the Silhouette, and all these machines were destroyed because he had taken whatever, a bat, I don't know, a hammer, something to them, and just broke them all over my brand new
God.
carpet.
Mm.
All of
That's
it. And so,
terrible.
yeah, but it only happened in that room. Well, when the cops got there to obviously take the report, because by this time his mom had convinced him to leave the house because of the trouble that he was going to be in. By the cops got here, and they turned it into again a domestic violence, because even though it was not against personally me, it was my belongings, and that still was part of it. Well, he went back to jail for that. And probably my saving grace too, because, as much as I hate to admit it, I probably would have taken him back, because I was so scared of what I was going to do, how I was going to live life without, this person that kept beating me down,
Mm.
because I wasn't good enough. I was never good enough for him. I found out otherwise. My strength came from within for sure. So I did. I went and the very next morning got a restraining order and filed it. And as he's coming out of jail, he's being served with not only a restraining order, but divorce papers. And I was done on April 1st.
Wow.
So it will be
that was
5
not an April Fool's.
No, it will be 6 years this April 1st that happened.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, though, a lot of that too was you stayed a lot of the times because you were worried what he was going to do to himself. Because it got first it was the drinking, but I think you were, if you know, then it was he hurt other people, but then he was threatening to hurt himself on and off the whole time. If I remember correctly, it was
he had shotguns to his head. He had rifles to his chest. He had
Oh my God.
put himself on a train track one time. I had to go push him off the train tracks. And as the train is coming with my Camaro in his car, it was, I mean, this story can be dragged on for 7 hours if we had the time. I mean, it really, there was a lot that happened, and I stayed again 13 times of me telling him it was enough, that he needed to go get help. But you know, in alcoholism or in an addiction, you can tell them all you want, but until they're ready, they're never gonna want it.
Yeah,
That's right.
So the divorce happened, and then the kicker happened. He came after me. It was about 2 years, a year and a half later. No, it was a year and a half later. I had just finished being done with the business. I had given him a timeline and that he needed to pay me out, and that I was going to be done helping him with organizing the business and getting the inspectors, and he needed to train somebody new, and I wanted to be out of the business. So that happened that December. And the following August, he came after me, and he came after me in a big way that put him in prison, because he was under probation for his domestic violence, and then came after me with a vehicle. He chased me through a neighborhood, and it was all caught on camera by my client. And ended up hitting me and taking out a light pole, and kept on going. So when his probation officer arrived, he had some narcotics and a few other things on his possession, including some prostitutes, and he went to prison for attempt. And so he got 3.5 years. And the unfortunate part to all of this is, you know, unfortunately, he's still very, very ill. He still has not come out of it. I recently got some phone calls thinking that because I'm in a whole different place now in my life. I have a beautiful relationship with somebody that not only respects me, but encourages me every day, who's got me, you know, through some, you know, challenges that I thought I could never, you know, like open up to. And he really has. And so, you know, recently.
Well, that's really wonderful to hear, because you're really deserving of that, Rute. And I'm really happy to hear that. That's wonderful.
Thank you. So yeah, so we were actually, you know, in San Diego, and got a surprise phone call from the Gilbert Hospital, you know, telling me that, you know, he was in there. So, you know, just it's unfortunate that, you know, again, somebody with an addiction, when they're not ready, they're just not ready. And here we are, you know, still 6 years later, and, you know, he's still not 100%, which I pray for him. And I hope that, you know, someday he wakes up from it, but it's no longer something that I want to be in, you know, and
it's not for you to carry.
No,
you know,
it's
that's
not
it.
for me to carry. No, and I'm
No.
very, I don't carry it at all.
Good, good.
I don't blame myself. It's made me who I am today.
Mhm.
I am now a very, very independent woman who doesn't take crap from anybody, and a very successful real estate agent because of the experiences that I've been through in my life. I don't know, people ask me all the time, would you do your life over again as you know it? And I say, yeah, because I don't know that I'd be who I am today if I didn't go through the traumas in my life, because I could be this, meek person that didn't apply things, or didn't want to encourage somebody else, or didn't want to empower somebody else, that they can come out from really the depths of hell. Because Andrea's been on the other line where I'm calling her crying and not knowing what I'm going to do.
You know me, I'm like, get the fuck out of there. Get over here. Get over here now. Do you need me to come get you?
She did many, many times. Many times.
That's Andrea. That's Andrea.
But I'm going to tell you that, no, I remember you were very like, no, I'm okay. Everything's okay. And I'm thinking, my heart's racing. I'm like in my head, like going psycho for her. And I remember her being like, no. And I thought, how can she be this calm? But that's a lot of years. 13 years is a lot of years, so it was just, I guess for me, I'm not in it, right? So I couldn't understand, just leave, so and I would always say, and I'm here, I'll come get you. I'll pick up all your shit. I'll come with the moving truck. Like, I'm coming, whether it's alone or not, I'm coming. But I remember, wondering like, how is she calm? How is she just like, okay, no, it's fine. No, I got it. No, everything's going to be okay. And I always wondered like, I didn't understand it because I didn't live it, So for the people like, that I guess for people like me, who don't understand it, and to hear it, you just want to help and you don't know how, So I don't know if you have any advice for the people that want to help and feel like they're helpless.
What you did during those times was enough, because every time that we would have those conversations, don't think that they didn't guide me in some way. Like, I may be telling you that everything's okay, but I'm listening to every word you're telling me. And every time you said it, get out, get out. That final push was all these people, I think, with God telling me to get out. This is the time. These are all my hands, my little angels everywhere telling me.
And you know what, Rute?
Yeah, there were a lot of people.
And hearing your story, what a blessing it is that you're alive to tell the story, because you beat cancer. Praise God on that, right? And then you were in a very turbulent, toxic, unhealthy, violent marriage, right? And you could have been at risk of, God forbid, him hurting you, harming you, right? If it wasn't for your friend throwing that skillet, I mean,
right.
Honestly, he could have really that's it. That would have been it for you. And so I like that you say so many times, something pushed me between everyone, like Andrea and other folks that you had, like, as your support, right? Something just gave you a push, like you said, even if it was like the higher power, because it seemed like you wouldn't be here to tell the story if you didn't.
No, I think I would have been at the bottom of that pile.
Yeah.
Of the craft room if I wouldn't have that day.
Yeah.
There's people out there that may be listening to this, okay, that are in the situation that you were in, and they're sitting back listening how either, I'm listening to her, but how did she do it? How do I do it? I mean, what advice would you give them right now?
One of the things that I would give them is, if you don't have an outlet, know that there's things out there that are available to you. There are, crisis centers. There are, there, even within your own police stations, there is advocates that will come to you if you need that. I know for me, I had an amazing group of friends that, even though they weren't physically, one of them was, but physically there, they were always encouraging me and telling me that you need to get out, you need to do this, you need to put these things in place. And I did. I created a very small bank account, because I didn't know, I created a small bank account. I put money, in an envelope that he ended up finding in the craft room. It had $300.
Of course he did.
Right.
Good grief.
That's probably what he was looking for, is money.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because there was time in
Mhm.
all of this craziness of this marriage, I had to take credit cards, I had to take money, I had to take keys. I mean, it was so crazy. To sit here and tell you the entire story, we would need 10 hours. I mean, Andrea knows a
Yeah.
good portion of the story,
Yeah.
but there was crazy stuff that happened. And truly, don't feel like you're alone, and don't feel like you can't. If I can give you any piece of advice, don't feel like you can't do this, because you can. I left with hardly anything really from the marriage. I gave him everything. I didn't want, material things at all. I wanted to start new. I wanted to start fresh. And I went out there and pound the pavement and got my real estate career to a level that I never expected it to happen. And truly, it's because of, just the people that encouraged me and were surrounded me. So if you don't have that, reach out to those people, that friends, family, maybe it's an Al-Anon group. I don't know, but
A church.
a church,
Mhm.
church is a great resource. That has some people that will help you get through that.
Mhm.
Cause that's what I fell back on. I had friends, I had my church, I had Al-Anon, and of course, those people like literally picked me up and took me to where I'm at today. So yeah,
Wow.
that's what I would suggest for anybody that's out there. And don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel
Or don't feel
'cause
shame, right? Or
yeah, that's where I
embarrassed.
was going. Don't feel
Yeah.
ashamed or embarrassed, because I know I did. I felt super ashamed to tell my dad and my folks that
Yeah.
I was in this crazy marriage. I was ashamed to tell friends, that maybe weren't as close as others. I had a core group of friends that um knew everything, and they too, though, not Andrea, but there was a few others that they thought that I was crazy, like that I couldn't possibly be in this life that I was in, dealing with this man who would do these things, that I was making it all up until they seen it for themselves. Because it was crazy. I mean, it literally can be a crazy world. And but know that you're not alone. If you ever need somebody that maybe it's somebody you can't tell your family, or you can't tell your friends, I know the girls are welcome to share my information. You can reach out to me, and I can, kind of give you words of encouragement and powerful things that got me through stuff. I'm always here to talk to anybody that is going through it. So,
And if anybody needs a resource, they can reach out to us and we will find you somebody.
yeah,
Yeah.
they will.
Depending on where you are in the country, I don't know if I can take my moving truck and come get you, but
Well,
But I
you were
just
not in
might.
Arizona when it all went down, so you were going to do it anyway. She'll fly her ass to help you.
Yeah.
That I do know.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
well, I'm glad that you were able to tell your entire story, because it has been, I mean, it's not just an experience, it's a roller coaster.
Mm.
And it started from a very young age.
Mhm,
You know, I mean, you're looking at what, 30 years?
mhm,
Mhm.
30 years of up and down.
mhm.
I mean, you know, getting through a lot, and then the next thing comes, and then you get through a lot, and then the next thing comes, and then you know, and now where you're at, I'm glad to see where you are at. I'm glad to see that smile on your face. Um, you know, and you're happy, and you're keeping the garbage out and all of the negative bullshit out, and not letting it back in no matter what. And
And so to just put it all in summary, you go through seasons in your life, and some of those seasons have remarkable friendships that happen. Some of those seasons you lose those friendships. They were all there for a purpose and a reason. I've lost some friendships that I thought would never be lost in everything, but in all, I've really know who my true friends have been, that have stuck by me and have been on this roller coaster ride with me. So, um, to say that I didn't want any of those friendships or regret any of those that happened or didn't happen, I don't, because it
yeah,
really has shaped me to the person I am today. Whether it be a relationship or whether it be a friendship or even my own family. I have no communication with my mom, my real mother, I should say, and that's okay. So for those that
mhm,
have that struggle, because for years I did, for years I struggled, because I do believe that, I have a strong faith in God, and I thought, oh my God, God's never gonna, let me go through, because I have this burden that I'm carrying with my real mother that I'm not willing to forgive her or keep going with it. And you can forgive somebody, but they don't
Mhm.
have to be in your life,
right,
That's right.
just like with
absolutely.
with the ex, I have
Mhm,
forgiven him, but he doesn't need to be in my life.
right.
Right.
And that's okay. So remember that when you're
Yeah.
in the midst, and I know it's hard because I've been there. I've been,
Mhm.
with all the craziness, and um, I know how hard it can be to want to go to the next step and stop the madness, but know that it can happen, and there's resources and people that are willing to help you to do that.
Yeah. And there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
And there's light at the end
Absolutely.
of the tunnel.
And
And there's
yeah, and there's hope. That's right. And you're an example of what's possible, and what it looks like to come to the other side. And if anybody that's listening in can resonate with parts of Rute's story, whether it's alcoholism or domestic violence, whatever, know that you yourself, can own your strong and come over to the other side. So, Rute, thank you, man. This was like, oh my God. Like I
sorry for
feel
making you cry, Andrea.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said sorry for making you cry.
Oh, that's okay. I use my fingers for Kleenex. Jeanette did too, I noticed.
I
She just didn't say it
know.
out loud.
Yeah. Well, I was just, doing the tap, 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 tap on my face.
Yeah, yeah.
But but I just want to just thank you so much for, sharing your story, especially giving us like the full picture. I think that's so
Mhm.
incredibly important. And I know you're very brave, Root. I know that probably was
Yeah.
not easy, but you eased into it. And I love your heart, and I love that you just, put it all out there, and you're a woman of courage and strength, and I am very honored to have
And this is the
met
first,
you. So thank you.
yeah. And this is the first time she's actually told her whole story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
And
So
it's
huge.
funny because, I told my boyfriend that I was going to share my story. And, he is always encouraged me in everything that I do, but he also plays the devil's advocate and says, well, what about, people that hear your story and may not want to, and they're going to be judgment, and there's going to be judgment about what your story is like. And, and if people are going to judge me and not want to use me as their real estate agent because of my story, I don't need them to be around. Really, I don't want to help
Mhm.
them either
Yeah.
because my story is made me who I am today, and I'm not
Yeah.
ashamed of that. So
amen, sister.
yeah.
Well,
Amen.
we always like to say over here that if you're a judger, the only person you should be judging is who you see in the mirror, because it's if you're judging other people or you're influenced by whatever it is that really isn't even, I mean, this story isn't their story, and when you look at somebody, you have to look at their heart, not at what they went through and how they overcame it or whatever the case may be, because you weren't in their shoes. You don't know, and there's a lot of things that go on around you when you have situations where people don't really know the whole story of how it felt, what was really how many people, what was going on in that time. You just don't know. So you can't judge somebody. You weren't there. You didn't, you didn't walk in their shoes. So judge, look in
You're
the
there
mirror.
though.
Yeah, but I was there, yes, but not I would come help you, but I was never going to judge you for staying or
No,
going because you had to make your decision and be comfortable with it. Like I could have picked you up, threw you over my shoulder and left. What is that going to do if you're not ready to go? So it's not like you can't force someone to do what you think is best for them. Even though you want to protect them, you can't, but you also can't, you're not walking in their shoes behind that closed door. I still didn't really know. And even now, I hear it, but did I physically go through that? No. So I can't tell you what my emotions would have been like. I don't know. So I could never judge you. And if anybody else is going to judge, like I said, look in the mirror because that's the only person you should be judging.
Mm-hmm. No, no, that's
And that's
right.
it.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line.
the bottom line.
Ah,
Well, I
so,
want to, once again, I just want to thank Root for coming on here and being so
yes.
brave and sharing such a compelling story that is one of strength, hope, um, courage. It's just, you're remarkable. And for our audience who's listening in, we hope that Root's story has inspired you as much as it has inspired us. We are inspired by women who really own their strong and, you know, really beat, whatever odds are not in their favor, they beat it anyhow. And so kudos to Root. And remember, we are here to empower you. And if you feel you have a story that's you'd like to get out and inspire others and share, let us know, message us. And remember, we are Web's Women.